Hey everybody, so today I'm going to have my first Keto Konversations interview, and it's with John Somsky. I'm going to let him introduce himself. We're going to talk a little bit about his struggle, his journey on keto. We're also going to talk about some other stuff that he has going on to help the keto community, especially here in the Twin Cities area. So I really look forward to this first Keto Konversation, and I hope to have many more to come, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks. Hi everybody, so today I'm doing an interview, and it's my first Keto Konversation, and it's with John Somsky. He's the co-founder of Minnesota Ketonians, and helped with the upcoming event Keto Minnefest, so thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey through keto.
Well, I guess it started as a young child, not the keto portion, but the lead up to it. I've always been overweight my entire life, and went on my first diet actually in second grade, and it's been a constant struggle with going on a diet, losing a little bit, and then gaining back everything that I lost and a little bit more after that.
So the diet that you went on in the second grade, can you tell me a little bit more about that? What was that like?
You know, I don't remember a lot about it, other than I was on a diet, and I don't remember, that just kind of cemented in my mind that, you know, I was fat and I had issues with food and with weight, and kind of set me on that trajectory from then on.
So I saw that you called yourself, you were considered as like the fat kid in school.
Yep.
So having that being said, like what were you treated like by your peers, and how did that feel?
I mean, kids can be a little cruel, so I got made fun of for my weight, and I always felt self-conscious about it, and you know, everyone has their own little thing that they feel self-conscious about, so that's not that unusual, but it made it difficult. I was always never very good at sports, but liked to play them, liked to fit in, but it was a little bit ostracizing to be overweight. I never felt, always felt kind of fat and ugly.
So you said that you liked playing sports and stuff in school, so
Yep.
Is there something that you particularly went towards?
Probably the thing that we played most of was baseball. And I was never, I played in Little League and T-ball before that a little bit, but I was never very good for that. But during the summers we'd get like 4 or 5 of us, and we'd break up teams, and usually we wouldn't have enough for a full team, so you'd say, okay, you can only hit to left field, everything else is out, and you know, you'd have a pitcher and maybe a catcher, and you know, have teams of 4 and 4 and figure out how to make it work. But it was always a lot of fun playing.
Yeah, baseball season now, it just came back, so
right.
Yep, looking forward to the summer pastime, you know.
Yep.
So you were a wrestler too in high school, right? Or in school?
Yeah, I did one, my sophomore year of high school, I signed up for wrestling. And I think that was because I was never good athletically. I wanted to just do something to show that I could do it. I wrestled that year at the 168-pound weight class, which for my height, if I would have been in the shape that the rest of the team was in, I probably should have been more like 128 or something like that. But I was able to survive the year and learned a few things. In college, I had a wrestling match with my roommate, who was a little bit bigger than I was, but because I had done some wrestling, I could easily beat him. Just a little bit of knowledge went a long ways there. Was not very good, but it was still a learning experience.
Sure. So in 2008, you were diagnosed with diabetes and started taking metformin.
Yes.
So what is metformin?
Metformin, also known as glucophage, is a drug that decreases the amount of sugar that your liver produces. It also will help to increase the sensitivity of your fat cells to insulin. So it helps to rein in a little bit of metabolic syndrome or insulin resistance.
Okay. So let's talk about 2015 and your A1C.
Yeah. My A1Cs started skyrocketing. I had tried in 2000, I briefly tried Atkins right before I got married, and then went off of it for my honeymoon and never quite managed to make it back on. But I had felt fairly good during that. Had gotten off of it and started eating more carbs, and eventually my A1C, which is an average of your blood glucose for 3 months, had gotten up to 10.7. Anything over 6.0 is considered diabetic. When you get about 5.5, it's pre-diabetic. And I did not want to go on insulin. My wife wanted me to try to avoid it because she's a pharmacist and had never heard of anyone who had ever gotten off of insulin once they went on it. So I didn't want to start that, but I tried for about 6 months and kind of half-hearted approaches at going low carb, and before I knew about keto, and went from 10.7 to 10.6, so basically no change. And then at that point I went on insulin and worked my way up. Was on Lantus, which is a slow acting insulin versus fast acting, so you can just take it once a day, or I took it twice a day because I ended up being on a fairly large dose. I worked my way up over a few months to 120 units a day of insulin.
Wow. So during that process of taking that amount of insulin, what was your body reacting like?
You know, I felt so horribly that I don't think I even really noticed. You know, it's like it's the opposite of having a finely tuned sports car, right? If you have a finely tuned sports car, anything goes wrong, you can tell exactly what's going wrong. If you have a rickety old bucket of bolts that you're driving, and the tire is a little low, or you hit a pothole, or the door is rattling, or something else is going wrong, you don't really notice because everything is going wrong.
Yeah.
So I didn't really notice much. I wasn't feeling that good. I would constantly be in spots where all of a sudden I would just feel kind of ugh. And I'm sure it was because I was getting too high on my blood sugar or too low on my blood sugar. It was hard to regulate. And eventually, after being on the insulin, it was able to control it anywhere from about 6.5 to 7.9 in that range for my A1C. It doesn't correct it very well. You're still in the diabetic range, but actually the problem with insulin is when you use it to treat diabetes, it lowers your blood sugar, but they don't actually want to get you to a healthy blood sugar. The reason being is the problem with insulin is it can lower your blood sugar too much. And the only thing worse than having a high blood sugar is having too low of a blood sugar, because that can kill you fairly quickly. So in order to use insulin to medicate yourself to a healthy A1C, which would be something below 5.5, it produces too much risk of having a low blood sugar event, which can produce death.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. So when when you were going through all this, tell me about the turning point that happened in 2016.
Well, so I'm a computer programmer, and I was listening to a podcast by Carl Franklin called .NET Rocks. It's about computer programming. And he said that he was starting up a ketogenic podcast called Two Keto Dudes with another programmer friend of his, Richard Morris. And I knew in the back of my mind that I wanted to get back to Atkins. I knew that I wanted low carb. I wanted something that was the best I'd ever felt in my life, and I wanted to get back to that. And this was kind of good timing. It's like, okay, maybe keto is the next version of low carb that I try. So I listened to that. I probably started listening in around June of 2016. And then in November, or actually late October of 2016, I stepped on the scale and I was 397 pounds. And I did not want to break that 400-pound barrier. That was just a mental block. And I'd kind of been listening to Two Keto Dudes, getting my ducks in a row, learning the information, and thought, okay, now's the time to start. So November 1st, I decided to start. I had a discussion with my doctor, which is an important thing to do, particularly if you're taking insulin, because anytime you change your diet or change your medications, it can affect your blood sugar. And because insulin lowers your blood sugar actively, you need to make sure that you watch that so that you can adjust your medications as time goes on.
So, speaking of your doctor a little bit here, there's a lot of misconceptions about going keto, and a lot of doctors that may not be on board with what keto does. Maybe they don't read up on all the new materials, or I don't know exactly what it is. But what are your thoughts on that? And I mean, how was it having your doctor support what you were trying to do?
I got fairly lucky. He was receptive to a low-carb approach. I don't know that I even used the words keto the first time I was talking with him, because some medical professionals, my wife included, were initially afraid of keto because they mix up ketosis with ketoacidosis.
Yeah.
One of which is a healthy thing, the other one is not at all healthy. So I didn't mention the word keto, but he was very supportive. He was always, he'd mentioned to me a few years prior that, you know, the food pyramid that the government puts out isn't really all that healthy and isn't really the way you should go about things. He was more about looking at the glycemic index of things, which is kind of the first step towards understanding keto. I mean, that's not all there is to it, but if the medical professionals have done their research on that, then they're more receptive to kind of the next steps. So I started doing it, and I don't think he ever thought I was going to get off of insulin. My wife has told me since then, although she was very supportive when I said I was going to try it, she said, yes, you go do that. She never thought I'd get off of it. She'd never seen anyone get off of insulin before. And now I know in the keto community, I'm one of hundreds, if not of thousands of people who have done this. So it's nothing unusual or special. You just need to have the right tools in order to be able to do it. So I started weaning myself off of insulin, and I went fairly slowly. And my blood sugars were still running high-ish, you know, in the 120, 130 range. But I still wanted to get off of the insulin. So by about March of 2017, so that would have been about 5 months later, I was completely off of insulin. And I took it very slowly, worked with my doctor, and made sure I did it, you know, safely. But that felt good.
Well, do you have any advice to, like, I have some people that I know that I talk a little bit about keto, and they have type 2 diabetes and they take insulin and stuff, and they're either scared of keto or getting information from their doctor that may not jive with what they might want to try. you have any suggestions for them?
The first thing, it's very difficult for the medical community. Doctors in general are not very well educated when it comes to nutrition. Most of them have, 8 to 16 hours worth of their education was dedicated to nutrition, which is not a very big portion of it. There's also a lot of misinformation out there. Until recently, the American Diabetics Association recommended that people eat, 120 to 180 grams of carbs every day. That you're supposed to eat 6 meals a day, and make sure you have, at least 20 to 30 grams of carbs with each one of those meals. And there's a lot of really just bad information out there. People took some information that came out about in studies and extrapolated it beyond where it was actually factual to go. So I don't think that most of the medical community really wants to help you out. But the standard of care goes against it. And if a doctor goes against the standard of care, they risk losing their license. So they are putting their career at risk if they go against the standard of care. And until very, very recently, you could not recommend a ketogenic diet as part of the standard of care. It's only been within the last 6 months that the ADA, the American Diabetics Association, has changed their policy to say that, okay, keto can be one of the ways that you approach it. It's still not the recommended way, it's still not the only way, but at least they acknowledge that it is an approach and it's a viable alternative.
In Minnesota, right?
Right.
And we talked about the food pyramid and everything like that. And the one thing about Minnesota that the standard American diet, and I think about Ansel Keys and what he did related to the standard American diet. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's it's really interesting. So Minnesota was also one of the places that helped to research the ketogenic diet for the help of epilepsy patients.
Yeah.
Way back in I think it was the 30s or 40s. So Minnesota has some good things going for it. But Ansel Keys was from the University of Minnesota, and he has probably done more damage, or his legacy has done more damage to the health of our nation than just about anyone else I know. His 7 countries study took and manipulated data that he found to support the cholesterol heart health hypothesis. And that hypothesis has largely been debunked to this point. Not that cholesterol doesn't matter, not that it isn't a factor, but it is not nearly the factor towards heart disease that many other things are. So I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to start Minnesota Ketonians and why we're doing our Keto Minnefest, is to bring some good things back to Minnesota, not just this bad legacy.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about May of 2017.
So that would have been my first foray into fasting. I did 2 things. I joined the long distance program through Dr. Fung's IDM clinic, Intensive Dietary Management, which is a program that supports fasting. And I tried it out on the ketogenic forums. Brenda Zorn runs a fast every month, and I joined that. And it was amazing, the quickest transformation I've ever seen doing anything. I did a 3 to 4 day fast. I don't remember exactly how long, but somewhere in that range. And prior to the fast, my blood sugars were averaging in the 125 to 145 range-ish there. And after that fast, they lowered about 25 to 30 points permanently. Never went back up.
Oh.
And I think that just made a huge difference. That and starting to intermittent fast. If you think about it, so one of the reasons why the ketogenic diet helps to repair insulin resistance is because in order to repair insulin resistance, you need to give your body a break from insulin. And, as people on the keto diet know, carbohydrates cause a huge insulin response. So that's going to just force a lot of insulin to be raging through your body. Protein causes a moderate insulin response, and then fats cause a low insulin response. So by shifting your diet more towards the fat and protein range and less towards the carbohydrate range, you're able to lower the overall insulin that you have in your body. Well, the only thing you can do more than that is not eat any food, because all foods produce an insulin response. If you have a little bit of time where you're giving your body a break, then it's able to actually have no extra insulin in your body, and your cells can start to recover and have a little breath without all the insulin surging there.
So, I remember looking in one of, I think it was Dr. Fung's book. I can't remember if it was the diabetes code or if it was the obesity code. It was one of the two, and he had talked about like your mitochondria in your cells it's already full, right. So the insulin can't get in there. So taking this break and doing the fasting allows stuff to go back to a normal range.
Right, exactly.
So do you continue to fast now?
Yes, I do.
What does that typically look like?
It varies. I try to fast about 3 days a week, and sometimes I'll just do a 24-hour fast 3 times a week. Other times I'll do a 3-day fast. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, I happened to do a 5-day fast. So it just varies depending upon how I feel. One of the important things with fasting is that you need to really listen to your body and be responsible about it. So if you don't feel well, stop your fast immediately. So I kind of have an idea when I start a fast of when I'm going to stop it, but that's kind of just a guideline. And, if I'm not feeling it, I'll just stop, and I can always fast again later.
So I'm hoping that I'll have Brenda Zorn do an interview as well, but she's not here right now, and you're here. So when you come off of a fast, what does that look like? So you haven't eaten for 3 days or something like that. What?
So there are a few tricks that you need to learn. Particularly for me, at least, if I do a 24-hour fast, I can just go back to eating like normal, and there's nothing, 24 hours or less, no problems. But once you get over like a 2 or 3 day fast, your digestive system kind of shuts down. So you need to wake it up, because if you don't wake it up slowly, things will tend to rush through a little too much, and it's not really a pleasant experience. So I'll usually eat like a fatty meat, or often I'll have a pickle, because one of the things that fasting does is it acts as a diuretic, so you'll lose electrolytes. So the extra salt in a pickle usually tastes good when I'm coming off of a fast, so I'll maybe have a pickle and some salami or some other type of fatty cheese. I tend to avoid nuts during that first one, just because that can cause problems. But eat something small, something high in fat, and then wait about a half an hour before you eat your actual meal. That gives your digestive system a chance to wake up, and then you can eat and minimize any issues from there.
Thanks for that. So can you say something about autophagy? Do you know about autophagy? Yeah,
so autophagy is when your body reclaims protein in your cells. And so it like recycles the dead or damaged cells in your body and reuses that information or that material. And that's one of the great things about fasting, is that autophagy tends to be at its maximum point after about 2 to 3 days of a 2 to 3 day fast. So your body is recycling all of the old proteins. It is very healthy for you to do. Even if you're just doing intermittent fasting, where intermittent fasting is just concentrating your eating window during the day. So you might eat every day, but maybe eat 2 60-minute meals over an 8-hour period, so that you still have 16 hours at night and about 7 hours in the middle of your meals, or 4 hours or 5 hours, whatever that looks like for you. Still gives your body a break, a chance to rest, and you will get some autophagy during those time periods. But the 3-day fast kind of gets you to the maximum autophagy, where your body is recycling all of those proteins.
Wasn't there, I believe I heard Dr. Fung talk about like the magic number, like when you get to a certain point where you're close and you're feeling like you want to eat something, but then after you hit this number, you don't really feel like you want to eat it anymore, and you could go longer periods of time with the fast.
Yeah, that time period is different for different people. For me, it's around the 24-hour mark, and I've done fasts longer than you really ever need to do. I think according to the literature that I've seen, there's not much point in going beyond about 5 days. But once I hit the 24-hour mark, I can kind of keep on going. And as long as you keep your electrolytes up, meaning taking salt and drinking water, then you can pretty much keep on going. And it's amazing to me, the first time I fasted, I had more energy than I had had in months. My wife referred to me as the Energizer Bunny. And it's odd when you think about it, the fact that doing a fast would actually give you energy. But if you think back to it, in Paleolithic era, if you didn't have food coming in, your body needed to prepare you to go find the food. So it needed to give you lots of energy to go hunt or to forage or whatever it is to find your food. So that's one thing that's important to understand, is that your body interprets fasting versus calorie restriction very differently. Fasting, it just assumes you're out of food right now. Calorie restriction, it assumes you're starving. So it starts to shut your body down. Whereas with fasting, it starts to rev your body up. It actually increases the amount of human growth hormone that you have. During February of 2018, I fasted for 23 days. I did a bookend DEXA scan before and afterwards. And during those 23 days, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I lost something like 13 pounds of fat and gained 6 pounds of muscle.
Wow.
So despite the fact that I did 23 days worth of fasting during that time period, not all in a row, but...
Oh, that's great. I did a DEXA scan not that long ago, and it was really interesting, the information that came up on that scan. Do you do that as every so often, or just for that time period you did it?
No, I do it every so often. I think I've had about 5 DEXA scans total in my lifetime. They're not super cheap, but they're not super expensive either, so
Groupon. I found mine on Groupon.
Yep, that's a good way to get them.
Yeah. So in January 2018, you've lost how much weight since then?
I've lost. Right now I bounce. The lowest I've been, I probably was down about 165 pounds at one point, but I go between about 150 to 160 on average.
Wow. So how are you feeling now?
Oh, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling very good. It's amazing the difference that it's made. I mean, when I started back in 2016, I couldn't stand for more than a half an hour before my back would start to seize up. When I was doing dishes, which is one of the things that I do around the house, I'd have to take breaks. And I'm not talking about washing dishes by hand. I'm talking about just loading and unloading the dishwasher. So now I can stand all day long. I can walk for miles if I want to. I'll sometimes at work just decide to take the stairs because I feel like it. I could not imagine prior to that feeling like taking the stairs. I've started to go to the gym and work out because it actually feels good, and I've never been one who's enjoyed working out before. So it's been a huge transformation. I honestly believe that I was headed towards an early grave prior to finding keto, and it has totally changed my health.
Wow. There's so many people that can be inspired by your story, and everybody is at a certain point in their life, and everybody is different, and meeting people where they're at any point is super important, and having each other's back. And hearing your story, I'm hoping like people can get inspired to take control a little bit more of their health and have the opportunity to try to help themselves, because nobody wants to struggle to the point where they're unable to function in their life.
Right. Well, and the important thing is my story. It's not that it's my story. It's that my story is one of hundreds, one of thousands. And if you listen to all of the stories out there about people regaining their health, whether it be metabolic health through diabetes, whether it be having issues with mental illness, and keto has been able to help a lot of people with that, whether it be having issues with eyesight or with seizures or whatever it is, there are so many ways in which we can take control back over our health. And it is amazing. I mean, I have gotten so much inspiration from the rest of the community that I just feel obligated to give back just a little bit.
Yeah. Do you have any health goals for yourself right now that you're working on?
Well, I would still like to get down to where I've lost 200 pounds total. Then I will have lost over half my body weight. I'll be below 200 pounds, and that's still a goal that I have. I would also, in my entire life, I have never done a pull-up. And I am currently working on being able to do a pull-up. So I would like to, at some point, say I can do one.
That's great. So, like, I was on the scale the other day, and I weighed myself, and I'm 160 pounds. So we think about that right now, and how much stress, like if I was on your back right now, how much that would have been stressful on your body. And
Right.
It's just unbelievable if you really take a look and think about what 160 pounds really is. So
Right.
200 pounds, I mean, you really think about that, that's another human being. That's just crazy. And I applaud you for still having the goals that you do have, because every step along the way we need to reassess ourselves, right, and try to think of different goals, or if we're in a stagnant spot, we need to reassess our diet or whatever in order to try to kickstart it back up again. Because this isn't a bubble, and you can't just stay on one route. It's same thing with like working out. If you keep doing the same workout all the time, there's going to be muscle memory, and you're not going to get as good a benefit if you don't switch it up. So yeah. So how can people find you?
Well, the Minnesota Ketonians is the main group that I run, so you can go to minnesota.ketonians.com. We're also on Meetup, and we have a Facebook group. You can go to Keto Minnefest, which is spelled M-I-N-N-E for the mini part, Minnesota. KetoMinnefest.com, and you can find out about our Minnefest, which will be on May 11th. And I also have a blog, KetoGrinder.com.
So where did the Keto Minnefest, where did that come from? Where did that idea come from?
So Keto Fest is put on by the two keto dudes. When I mentioned the podcast that I listen to, that's the two keto dudes podcast. And they started the first Keto Fest in 2017 in Connecticut. And since then they've had the idea of other people rolling out little mini fests. And they just spell it M-I-N-I, but we wanted to Minnesotaize it.
That's right.
So that's what we did. And we just thought it'd be great to bring the Keto Festival to Minnesota and bring it to more people and see, people hear about keto and say you have to give up bread, you have to give up flour, you have to give up grains. And the goal is to show people, it's not it is a diet that you do choose what you're going to eat, but it's not a restrictive diet. It is a very satisfying diet. It's not like it's austere. There's lots of good foods to eat, and it can be very satisfying.
So you said that the Keto Minnefest is going to be in May. Where is it going to be at?
It's going to be at the St. Croix Yacht Club, which is in Stillwater, at their clubhouse. And we're going to have Maria Emmerich. She lives across the river in Hudson, Wisconsin, I think, or near Hudson. Anyway, somewhere nearby in Wisconsin. She's going to be there being our main speaker and talking about doing some food demonstrations as well. And then Carl Franklin, who is one of the two keto dudes, he's going to be flying in there as well. Brenda Zorn will be there as well. So, and lots of people from the Minnesota Ketonians. There are dozens of people working very hard on putting this together.
I got my tickets already. So are tickets still available or not?
The last time I checked, I think there were 2 tickets still available. So they may or may not be still available by the time this
all right.
is posted.
But what's the goal for that? I mean, are you planning on trying to have this an annual thing, or what do you?
I think we would like to maybe even do it a couple of times a year. That may or may not happen this time. We've been learning a lot because at this point we don't quite know what we're doing, but I think we will know what we're doing by the time we hold the next one. It'll still go off very well. We're just learning a lot as we're going.
Yeah, it would be nice to have 2 a year. Like it's nice to have something when it gets a little nice out, but then in the wintertime, we're in Minnesota, right? We're always looking for something to do to get us out of our normal area that we're in. So that would be kind of nice too. So yeah, it's been really nice talking to you, John. I really appreciate you doing this interview and giving out all this great information. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So do your best to do your best and take it day by day.